Welcome to Not Suitable for Democracy, the show about the problems facing American democracy and how to solve them through organizing. I'm your host, Nick, and on today's episode, we're going to talk about election updates. What's happening in the state of Texas between Rep. Jasmine Crockett and State Rep. James Talarico competing in the primary for the U.S. Senate. What will that election mean based on the winning strategy, and how will that affect the 2026 midterm elections around the country? Then we're bringing it right back home here to New York City to talk about Zohar Mamdani taxing the rich and an election shakeup happening right here in Astoria, New York, in State Senate District 12. Well, we have a lot to cover, and without further ado, let's get into it. One more thing before we begin, I just want to say thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you hear and want to learn more, then make sure to subscribe to Not Suitable for Democracy on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube. Let's start in Texas. Now, the last time a Democrat represented Texas in the United States Senate was in 1988. Lloyd Bentsen. He won his first election for the Senate in 1970, winning re-election several times, and eventually leaving in 1993. Now, it wasn't until the 90s that Republicans finally got their stronghold on Texas, representing the Senate, both seats, and has become the ruby red state that we, reliably think of for conservatives. Now, that is about to change this year in 2026. Now, just for some context, this wasn't an overnight switch, but I am pretty sure that we are going to see a Democrat win the general election in Texas come November. Now, before I get into the candidates, let's just paint the picture. How do we get here, right? Number one, there has been a demographic shift. Residents in high tax states like New York, California, the cost of living, as we know right now, is pretty exorbitant, and people are feeling the effects. Because of that, folks are leaving blue cities and blue states to find homes and housing in lower tax states like Texas. And we also know that Texas does have more affordable housing. So this is an ideal situation where we're having, folks who have grown up around diversity, more inclusive policies and education, right? More opportunities, economic opportunities in their blue states, in their neighborhoods, in their cities, their towns, whatever, what have you. Now they're moving to places like Texas. On top of that, we also know the demographics have changed in the sense that we have more diversity in Texas. It is a majority minority state, meaning there are more non-white residents than white residents. That is a good thing. This is how we can bring our culture, our different perspectives, and our different experiences not only to our neighborhoods, our schools, places of worship, anything that's going to then change how we see the world around us. And I mention that because this is how we're going to build a coalition to take on the Republicans that, let's face it, they are a majority white party, right? We see that in every exit poll. So how are we going to shift, or how are we going to take advantage of this new demographic shift? We're seeing former blue state residents moving to Texas. We're seeing a huge Latino population, more people of color, right? And in turn, right, the blue cities out in Texas are getting a little bluer. And that's why Texas is now a purple state. But I shouldn't say now, right? For those of you who would follow along in politics, especially at a national level, statewide, right? We know that Texas almost went blue in 2018 when Beto O'Rourke almost beat Ted Cruz. And I don't know many people who like Ted Cruz. I despise Ted Cruz. I'm just not a fan. No way, shape, or form. Don't even like talking about him. Beto almost won by like 2.6 points. He had, or 2.6%, something very small margin. And mind you, there's like 18 million registered voters in the state of Texas. So the fact that I think it came down to 220,000 votes in that election, and I think it was like maybe like 8.3 million people voted in that election. 8.3 million voted, 18 million that are registered to vote, and it came down to 222,000 or 2.6%. So yeah, 220,000, that's about, it's a little bit more than the population of this neighborhood of Astoria, but that's how we almost turned Texas blue. Now, that was in 2018, the era of identity politics, right? This was the first year of Trump's term, huge backlash to Trumpism being ushered in to our American electorate, American psyche, our history, unfortunately. But the point at the end of the day, though, that is where we were at. You know, when they like to say a post-racial America after Obama's administration, well, we saw the reaction. And the rise of the Tea Party, right? More fringe part of the Republican Party, especially on cultural issues. Conservatives were definitely playing the culture war, as they still are today. But now, 8 years from that point, right, we have another golden opportunity. Texas could very much turn blue in 2026, thanks to either one of two candidates, either Congressional Representative Jasmine Crockett or Texas State House Rep James Talarico. We know we have the demographic shift that could actually create a positive environment for a Democrat winning. But I would like to share with you the two strategies that both candidates are currently executing on. And now, granted, this is a primary, so a Democratic primary is different than a general election. So there are some circumstances that could change and should change. But just know we have two good candidates. They are from the progressive wing of the party in their own respects, but only one of them will win. Let's start with Rep. Jasmine Crockett. Now, before I get into that, just a quick reminder, if you are listening in, just know that if you are a registered voter in Texas, you could be voting right now. The election, or for the Democratic primary in the U.S. Senate race, and a lot of statewide races, actually, and even in state house races, congressional races, right, is happening right now in Texas. So you can vote early early voting ends Tuesday, oh my gosh. It's 7 minutes. So we know that Texas, before I jump into it, early voting is happening right now. The last day to cast your vote early is Friday, February 27th. Texans have 10 days between the 17th to February 27th to cast their vote. So if you're watching this podcast or listening in, make sure to vote by February 27th. The last day to vote in the Democratic primary is Tuesday, March 3rd. So next week, we will be talking about this race, and we will see if our prediction is correct, if it's accurate, if we were far off. But hey, anything can happen in politics, so I'd love to see what happens. But remember, vote, vote, vote. The last day to vote is Tuesday, March 3rd. And please make your voice heard, because that is suitable for democracy. So we have two strategies now that could really shake up not only this Democratic primary for the U.S. Senate in Texas, but also the 2026 midterms. Now, the strategy from Congressional Rep. Jasmine Crockett. She's been in office, or she's been elected to office, let's say, since 2020, a few years in the state house in Texas. Then she made the jump to Congress in 2022, winning November of that year, won re-election in 2024, and now she was redistricted out of her congressional seat. The Republicans, as you may have heard, are creating a power play where, in order to give Trump more seats in the House of Representatives, Trump called Greg Abbott like, giving more seats, and Greg was like, okay. So they added 5 more seats to the House of Representatives from Texas. And Rep. Jasmine Crockett, her district was one of those that was sacrificed, erased, removed. So because of that, right, if she wants to stay a elected member of the United States Congress, she would either have to run in a neighboring district or run in the United States Senate. So because her district was made more favorable to Republicans, there was a very good chance that she would not win. So she decided to say, I'm going to run in the United States Senate, run for the seat. Now, it's something that really hasn't been done before, right? Where, number one, Greg Abbott had the Republicans in Texas erased her seat in a not in a normal redistricting year. Redistricting happens every 10 years based on the United States Census. But we're 5 years in, and they are playing hardball. So Jasmine decided to enter the race in December of 2025. So the primary is, next week, March 3rd. So not much time to campaign. But fortunately for Jasmine Crockett, she has a lot of name recognition. She has had several viral moments going after Republicans like Marjorie Taylor Greene, especially President Trump. But even just, calling out the injustices and hypocrisies from conservatives, which is a good thing. It's good that she does that, and she's very outspoken. She's also captured her own media attention in doing so, right? And that is good for the Democratic Party because it's shown that she is a fighter. And I think that's great. Now let's talk the 2 strategies that are either going to make or break the Democratic primary for United States Senate. Now, we've got Rep. Jasmine Crockett and State House Rep. James Talarico. Now, between the 2 of them, they both have good strategies that could deliver them a victory on Tuesday, March 3rd. Don't forget to vote. So, until then, we know that Rep. Jasmine Crockett, she has been a consistent fighter talking about the hypocrisy from the Republican side, but also calling things out as she sees them, being very authentic, and capturing attention with good narratives that really show how she can rise up against Republicans, how she's unafraid, and how ideally she could deliver for her community. Now, with that said, her strategy is focused on the demographic shift that we talked about earlier. She knows that Texas is a majority-minority state, and she also knows that the Black population and Latino population do make up a substantial swath of the electorate. So because of that, her goal will be to message to them not only that she is the better representative, right? Like in the sense that, I am a person of color, we are leaders, we know what's best for our community, so I want to be your representative, so please come vote for me. But more importantly, she's the better fighter for Trump. For those who are looking to take on Trump and hate everything that's going on, she wants to fight him in the Senate. She is the fighter. That is her message. So 1, it's knowing that who her voters are. Number 2, it's a clear message that resonates with voters fighting Trump. And then 3, because she's authentic, she's bringing that new je ne sais quoi to politics, where instead of like talking in politician speak or calculating every word that comes out of their mouths, like Jasmine doesn't do that. She's very good at just speaking from the heart with a certain level of fire that doesn't come easy for people. So I give her a lot of credit for her style, her consistency on being a fighter, and knowing who she is and how that connects with her constituency, and in this case, the broader electorate of Texas in a Democratic primary. End of the day, her goal is to turn out the base, the Democratic Party base. What are the Democratic Party values that she's fighting for? What is the message that Democrats want to see? Who are the reliable Democratic voters who come out to support the party? But also, more importantly, Jasmine Crockett is looking to expand the electorate. She knows that the voting population, like in the country and arguably in Texas, is generally very white. white voters, whether they're college educated or not, they show up to vote. Trump's voters, as we know, are generally white, male, no college education. And I don't say that as a pejorative. I say it because that is what the exit polls show. But that is his base. And they're the ones who come out to vote, especially in Texas. Now, in a Democratic primary, different group, right? We know black women are the backbone of the Democratic Party, not only nationally, but also in Texas, right? Jasmine Crockett, being a black woman, leaning into her identity, assuming that that group will turn out to vote for her in record-breaking turnout, or at least large numbers. And she's probably right? Jasmine is speaking to their needs, to their values, so why wouldn't they? More importantly, as a person of color, right? Identity politics is still a very powerful tool to organize around, especially within community groups, and especially at a at a statewide level race when scaling your voting strategy, right? It's not just a small group of people, it's entire populations. So if you can get Latino vote, people who are immigrants, black voters, right? That's who she's counting on to come out to the polls, off the couch, and off to the polls. That could be her winning strategy, right? Expanding electorate, because we know they don't always vote. Now, we know that as much as black women are reliable Democratic voters, we also know that working class communities, especially immigrant communities who are voters, like maybe they might be registered to vote or first time voters, they don't vote in primaries. Maybe the general election, but it's just not consistent. That's the voting behavior and trends that we've seen time and time again. So Jasmine's looking to change that and saying, I'm going to give you a reason to come out and vote. I'm going to give you a reason by expanding the electorate, fighting for values that you care deeply about, and that could change the game. So basically, using identity politics as the lever, she's going to pull that lever and really, really get the word out that she is the candidate for them. And that is her plan to win the Democratic primary. Now, as much as that plan can work, I think it could. I would also argue that, or at least my concern with that plan, is that it doesn't necessarily speak to the policies or the systems where to expand the electorate, right? She knows she needs to fight Trump, but I don't think it goes as deep as fighting, or let's say reforming the systems that have created the conditions that not just Trump has created, but the state and the oligarchs and the elite, the Epstein class, right? How they've controlled things that's made life worse for people in Texas. It's kind of like connecting the dots. Trump is the scapegoat for Democrats. Jasmine's leaning into it. But there are systems that have enabled Trump, and I don't think Jasmine attacks the root of that as much. For instance, Jasmine Crockett has done a good job calling out the healthcare reductions that Trump has taken away in the Big Beautiful Bill. Republicans voted on that bill. It passed. Trump signed it into law. So the ACA, right, subsidies that were originally that had expired and not continued in that Big Beautiful Bill, is now causing healthcare costs to increase. So, Jasmine Crockett saying Republicans took away those healthcare subsidies, costs are going up, Republicans made healthcare go up. Yes. But I also realize that she is a Medicare for All advocate. So because Jasmine Crockett is a Medicare for All advocate, I was actually shocked that I never knew that she was a co-sponsor for Medicare for All. I didn't know that until she talked about it during the Texas debate that happened end of January. So I'm like, I'm not saying because I didn't hear it didn't exist, but for someone who does have a national presence, I know Jasmine Crockett for her clapbacks, her squabbles with Trump, calling him out. but I didn't know her policy positions. Whether that's a good thing or a bad thing for me as a, high information voter, or a good thing or bad thing for Jasmine as a candidate, if I'm thinking it, I think there's a good chance that there's other people in Texas in the Democratic Party who probably think it too. There are millions of people who are registered Democrats in the state of Texas. So I'm like, I can't be the only one who thinks this, right? Like, I know Jasmine Crockett more for her viral moments than for her policy ideas. But that's where we're at. So what I'd love to see is, like, yes, Republicans took away healthcare subsidies. They didn't renew them. So now healthcare costs go up. But then also, I would love to hear more about her attacking the big pharma healthcare lobby, right? Actual systems that cause healthcare costs to rise, but then also talk about how Medicare for all is the solution. Vote for me. I'm going to fight Trump, get those healthcare subsidies back, and fight for a better healthcare system so everyone has access. I don't want to say access, but everyone has the right to healthcare. That's what I mean. Because that's another trick that they like to say, like, oh, access, when really it's like, well, access is like, pay for it. Like, because that's what Biden always said. He always said, oh, if we could lower the cost, everyone has access. But then, yeah, but lower the cost from what? Like hundreds of thousands of dollars to only a couple $1,000s? It's still money that has to be paid. So, yeah. Anyway, point being, Rep. Jasmine Crockett is a Medicare for All co-sponsor, and I think that's amazing. But I don't know as much about her policy as I do about her fighting Trump. So will that work with the electorate? Maybe it will. We have yet to see, and we'll know on March 3rd. But again, I think she can win. I'm not saying she won't win. I'm saying that there is a chance she could win, and if she does, I would be very happy to see that because, again, she'll be making history.